Listening to the Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
The big story in the NFL right now is the reported trade request by Julio Jones and the Falcons trying to trade Julio Jones to create some cap relief, and who knows what the real reasons are besides that. For more on that story and where things stand, we go out to our progressive guest line right now, and we bring on a good friend to the show. He's the host of Ready or Mott on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. He is Thomas Mott, and he joins us right now here on the Jake Asman Show. Thomas, as always, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on.
What's up, Jake? How you doing today?
I'm hanging in. So what is the reaction based on what we heard yesterday where Julio Jones goes on Fox Sports 1 and basically says, I'm out of here in regards to the Atlanta Falcons?
Oh, it's bad here. It's not good. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Falcon fans are mad. I think that they're upset. And it's not the fact that Julio Jones wants to be traded. We've heard Julio Jones trade rumors for months now. And I think the report came out yesterday. The Falcons were fielding phone calls before the NFL draft. And I think most Falcon fans understood that if the right trade package came along, that you could potentially see Julio Jones shipped away. And you mentioned the cap issues, and that's the main reason why. I think yesterday, the way it went down on Undisputed, where he said, I'm out of there, right? It's like he was trying to leave a prison. And I think that kind of rubbed a lot of Falcon fans the wrong way. And people are hurt here. They're not happy about what went down yesterday.
You know, real quick, just on what happened yesterday, I felt like that was staged. Am I crazy?
No, I agree. There's no way that was in my opinion, there's no way that Julio didn't know he was on the air. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter being like, oh, what a big J journalistic violation by Shannon Sharpe for not announcing that he was being recorded. There's no way that was not at least pre-planned that they were going to be here. Plus, there's been no statement from Julio afterwards. And if he was caught off guard or was, lied about the fact that he was not on the air, I think we would have had a big statement from Julio Jones or his agent saying, what happened on Undisputed today was absolutely ridiculous. And 24 hours later, we've had nothing. So I agree that 100% was not a spur of the moment phone call. It was probably staged, or at least Julio knew what he was doing.
Thomas Mott, 92.9 The Game in Atlanta with us here on the latest with Julio Jones. Thomas, big picture, why do they want to trade Julio Jones? I get it. They need some salary cap relief, but ultimately, like I always compare the salary cap in the NFL to like the Subway $5 footlong. Like it's just a big farce. Like the smart teams, smart GMs can always find a way to finagle the cap to fit their best players under it. Why do the Atlanta Falcons feel like they have to trade Julio Jones?
Well, I think that it is partially the cap, and I'll push back a little bit on saying that you can move some things around and just kind of show that the Falcons are being a little strange with their cap money right now. So they need about $7 to $8 million to sign their rookie draft class, and they only have about $660,000 available, and so they're way short in that category. And so, yeah, you can move some things around. But what's weird is that Grady Jarrett, who has 2 years left on a very expensive contract, the defensive tackle in Atlanta, they're supposed to be working on a deal with him, but a report came out like last week where they said that they have not had any sort of phone calls. And so it's weird that they need the money. And people keep saying that Julio Jones, the trade would be because of money. And yet, like you said, they could just maneuver some things around with a guy like Grady Jarrett to free up the money and keep both of them and sign the rookie draft class. And yet, again, a week ago, from Grady's mouth himself, after one of their workouts or whatever, he basically said they've had zero discussion. So I think money obviously is a part of it. And listen, Julio Jones is expensive. The contract he's on is not a team-friendly deal for a wide receiver that's over 30. But I think that Atlanta themselves understand that this is probably your last chance to get a decent return for Julio Jones. Not already going to get a first-round draft pick. There's no way a team is going to give a first. But let's say that they were to wait a year, and regardless of how the contract worked out, if they wanted to wait a year to trade Julio Jones, last year was a big indication that he's taken a step back. And I think he's still an elite receiver and still really, really good, but he missed, 4 or 5 games due to a hamstring injury. He only had 3 touchdowns. That's been an issue for the past couple of years. I think deep down, new GM Terry Fontenot and, of course, Arthur Smith, the head coach, came in and they said, listen, we like Julio Jones. We would like Julio Jones to be on this roster, but he costs too much. And we can get something in return for him and continue the rebuild that's been going on in Atlanta seemingly for the past couple of years, but now officially re-begins with the new regime.
Here's the thing I don't understand, right? So if you're not going to get a first-round pick for the guy, and you're a team that still has Matt Ryan playing at a high level, and you took Kyle Pitts 4th overall, why not just keep Julio Jones and try and win when you're in a division that outside of Tampa has two teams that are very much in flux? And I would argue Atlanta's the second best team in the division right now.
Well, I think that's the glass half full thought process on the Falcons in 2021. I think that the Falcons defense is still going to be atrocious. It was bottom half of the league last year, and they really did nothing besides getting a safety in the second round in this year's draft to actually address the glaring issues at cornerback on one side and then pass rusher. I mean, they have, I guess Dante Fowler is their number one pass rusher this year, and he was atrocious last year dealing with injuries. So I think that Fontenot and Smith understand that this is a long-term rebuild. But I will agree. I mean, all of us in Atlanta, regardless of if you wanted Kyle Pitts or not, as soon as they drafted him number 4 overall, it was like, oh, man, well, this is an offense that's going to score 30 a game, right? There's no way you stop Ridley and Julio Jones and Matt Ryan and now Kyle Pitts. And I think that that's the real issue why Falcons fans are mad today. Again, not just because he went on Undisputed and acted like he wanted to get out, but they're going to be robbed of what could have been, in their minds, the greatest show on turf too.
Thomas Mott, host on 92.3 The Game in Atlanta with us here, talking all things Falcons and, of course, Julio Jones. Ultimately, Thomas, if they trade him, what do you think the return is for Julio Jones?
I think it'll be a second in 2022 and then probably a third in 2022 or maybe like a third in 2023. I think the best they get is a second. I think if they could find a way to finagle a player out of it, I saw some mock trades where they would, ship him to Philadelphia for a second-round draft pick and like defensive end Josh Sweat. I think that would be, in the long run, a good return to get a player at a position of need. I've seen a Raven mock trade where you get like Miles Boykins, you get like a wide receiver along with some draft picks. So if they can find a way to at least get something decent in return in terms of a player with some picks, it might be able to ease the blowback a little bit from Falcon fans. But I think most Falcon fans need to understand no one is calling you and giving you a first-round draft pick. And a lot of teams like San Francisco, who's been rumored, don't have a first-round draft pick next year because they traded up for Trey Lance. So second-round draft pick at best, probably an additional mid-round draft pick as well is what I'm hearing. But I think they need to try and get a player if possible. But again, Julio Jones is not, this isn't 2015 Julio Jones at the age of 28 where he's still the number one wide receiver by far in the National Football League. He's still elite. He's still good, but you're not getting a first at all. And so Falcon fans need to understand that as quickly as possible.
Thomas, switching to basketball, is Trae Young just a god in Atlanta right now?
He is. And it's kind of funny because for the past couple of years, it's been like we all love Trae Young, and some people have worshipped him since they drafted him. But there's been a lot of the Trae versus Luka discussion, and with Luka's recent success, at least last year in that Clipper series, people started to be, I think, a little bit hesitant on proclaiming him to be a superstar, right? And now, listen, one game winner beloved Knicks does not necessarily anoint him as a superstar in the NBA. I think he has always been a star in the NBA, but I think it went a long way just to see the Hawks play in a meaningful game, which they have not done in years. I mean, the entire time I've been in Atlanta, two plus years, they've been horrible. And I think Trae Young has been part of a solution to get back to the postseason. But to see them in a meaningful game and to see Trae Young come up clutch and hit a shot like that, for anyone who doubted Trae Young in Atlanta, I think that changed a lot of minds. Now, as you know, right, game 2 to tomorrow, it could easily lose to what is a very good Knicks team. And so I think if they can find a way to win this series, and if Trae continues to be special like he was in game 1, any last doubters of Trae Young, at least in Atlanta, are going to come over to the We Love Trae Young side. And now it's up to the national media to kind of, calm down on the Luka Doncic love, which is warranted, but also show Trae the love that he duly deserves.
You look at, this series, Thomas. I mean, what I love about what we saw in game 1 is that Young embraced, the crowd getting on him. And, if he thought it was, I heard Nate McMillan afterwards being like that he was like shocked that, the crowd was chanting the F word, like, get with us, Nate. I mean, it's 2021. I mean, those comments were just baffling to me looking at it. Like he was surprised that would happen given the, the state of, the sports landscape right now. But if, Trae Young thought it was loud on Sunday, now that there's so much attention on this and his comments after the game, it's going to be insane every time he touches the basketball Wednesday night.
Well, and I think that's going to be the big test for the Hawks. I expect them to lose game 2 tomorrow, and I think it's for all the reasons that you mentioned, right? I mean, it was a monumental effort to win game 1, and I think that the hype now becomes, exponentially bigger, and it will be louder, and it'll be crazier. And so I think it's not a matter of surviving game 2. I would take them to lose game 2. It's making sure that they don't lose game 2 and then start to lose a grip on the series, right? You lose game 2 in a hard-fought battle, come back to Atlanta where the crowd is going to be, hopefully, maybe not as ruckus as a New York crowd, but still first playoff series in 4 years, but get back on track and win game 3. That way you keep the advantage on your end. As long as they don't let game 2 get out of hand and then lose the series based off of that, I think we're going to be okay.
Thomas Mott with us here, 92.9 the game in Atlanta. Finally, just looking at this Hawks team, Thomas, I mean, they've been flying under the radar really all season. Why has this team just basically played like a totally different team when Nate McMillan took over for Lloyd Pierce?
We've asked that question, I think, every single day on my show here in Atlanta, and it's still baffling to me. I mean, I remember being on the air, I think, a couple of days before the All-Star break, and the Hawks were the 10th or 11th seed in the Eastern Conference, and it was basically the same roster, right? I mean, like, DeAndre Hunter got hurt, and he's been out for the vast majority of this miracle run by Nate McMillan. But I went on the air and said, all right, well, we got to fire Lloyd Pierce. We got to start, I guess, a whole new rebuild. The off-season additions of Gallinari and everybody else was a failure. And then McMillan comes in and everything changes. And I don't know if it's just a different voice in the head, if he's doing things differently in the locker room, but whatever Nate McMillan has done has been the secret sauce. And this basketball team is, it's night and day. I mean, it is literally night and day from where they were pre-All-Star break to where they are right now. And the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference was something that we didn't even really talk about before the beginning of the season. I think all of us were like, okay, just be competitive, be the 8th seed, get swept by the Nets or the Sixers, and at least we'll have a playoff series to look back on. And suddenly this is a basketball team that I think even someone like yourself, a Knicks fan, can admit, and you already did, it's dangerous, it's deep, it's scary. And when Trae Young plays like he did and Capella has the defensive ability at the rim, they have a shot, I think, to beat the Knicks in 6 or 7 and then probably get 1, maybe 2 if they play out of their mind against the 76ers. And if you'd have asked any Hawks fan, if, hey, listen, before the season, what have I told you? The Hawks be the 5th seed, they beat the Knicks in a playoff series and then win 2 against the Sixers, they would have paid big money for that, and it's just fun to be in Atlanta right now.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I feel like the Knicks and Hawks, talent-wise, are pretty close. Maybe the edge goes to Atlanta on talent, but the Knicks maybe have the edge with having home court and having Tom Thibodeau. But ultimately, I think this is a 6 or a 7 game series. Should be a lot of fun, man. Tomorrow night could be crazy.
It's going to be great, and I agree. I mean, listen, not just this series. I think every series in the NBA so far has been fun and electric, and past couple of years in the NBA, it's been like just blowouts in round 1, and so it's just fun to have a couple of meaningful series and meaningful games right now.
No doubt. He's Thomas Mott. Follow him on Twitter at @RealThomasMott. He's the host of Ready or Mott. You can listen to that, of course, on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Thomas, appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks so much for a few minutes here. We'll talk soon, man. Enjoy the rest of this series, and I know you'll be on Julio Jones watch, so we'll be following that as well.
Yep, Julio Jones every single day, and then hopefully we can handle your Knicks again tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thomas Mott with us there on the Progressive Guest Line. Let's hope they don't handle the Knicks. My goodness, we need the Knicks to win game 2 and make it interesting 1-1. Back to Atlanta we go. Quick break, and we'll be right back. We'll wrap up our show on a Tuesday. Tony La Russa got some sweet revenge yesterday. Not exactly, but we'll talk about the White Sox and the Cardinals next here on the Jake Asman Show.
The middle.